If I apologize for every delay, I'll be apologizing for every part that comes out. Just know that I've been sick as a dog these past few weeks because winter and me get along about as well as Rude and road signs. Quick announcement. I don't know if I mentioned during the last part or not, but I just want to bring you up to speed if you might be just watching the series and nothing else regarding my work. MJ Gallagher has, for about a month now, been acting as my lead editor on my novelization of FF8, so let me tell you, it's a huge difference. He's helping me spin my rough straw of a novelization into gold. I'm not saying he's like Rumpelstiltskin, but he did make me agree to give him my firstborn son if I couldn't guess his name. That was funnier in my head. I'm in a weird place right now. Let's just get on with it. We'll call part 5 the Micah is jacked up on pain meds episode. Anyway, okay, so we're looking at Sector 6 and the first bit of Wall Market. And if my throat sounds scratchy, that's because it is. Let's move on. So first off, in Gallagher's version, the first thing we get right off the bat is the reminiscence with him and his mom. Cloud's mom's name is Claudia. Now this is a deep cut right here. It's referencing concept artwork by Tetsuya Nomura, which labels her as Claudia Strauss. That's a nice Easter egg, but I really have to think Nomura was literally just thinking, what's a female version of Cloud? Claudia. Okay, now, enough of that nonsense. Look at how vivid and comfy this flashback sequence is. This is from page 80. I can't believe how much you've grown in just 2 years, Claudia grinned, brushing the spiky locks of hair from his face. Mom, stop it, he groaned, rolling over on the sofa. His body sank into the thick blue cushions, reminding him of the comfort it had given him as a child. Everything about the house triggered a memory in his mind, whether it was the familiar smells of the furniture fabric or the echo of the wooden floors around the stone walls with each step taken. There came a hiss from the next room as the stew gradually began to bubble in the boiling pot. With this, his mother stood and, taking one last look at him, she disappeared into the kitchen. Like that's home, man. That's just everybody can tap into those senses right there. So good. Just a reminder, by the way, Cloud's mom wanted Cloud to have an older girlfriend, one who would, quote, take care of him, and Tifa is a year older than Cloud. Okay, better address this real quick, because I don't want the comments to blow up like anybody watches this. I wouldn't consider myself a clotty. Besides, Clockhart is a much better term anyways. But I personally think the truth is basically as we see it in game. Cloud has affection for Aerith, which may or may not have been the remnants of Zack's influence, but when she died, Tifa was there for him. I think my basic stance on the LTD is, why not both? Okay, back to the video. The opening section has thrown me way off the rails. So Aerith butts her way in right from the get-go, having even been up earlier than Cloud, just chilling at the table with a mug of coffee. No games, get right to the point. I like it. We don't see much more of Sector 5, which I guess means Gallagher didn't do anything with the this guy or sick guy. Now granted, in its place we get some awesome compilation references here in a bit, but it's actually a little surprising to me. And believe me, I'm nobody to talk when it comes to omitting major parts of the game. Again, Gallagher's my editor now, he can tell you all about it. But like I say, while this part does get trimmed, we ultimately, it might be for the best, because the way Gallagher paces his book is very different. And as a result, we do get this scene. So, they make their way into the torn up Sector 6, and there's an explanation as to how this was destroyed, right? Now, I haven't played Crisis Core in ages, but I'm pretty certain what he's referencing here is the highway that got wrecked by a summoning. I'm thinking that's the same one, right? That's what she's referencing, right? I think I'm right. Let's just say I'm right. That's a good assumption. Another good point is that Gallagher refreshes us on Cloud's sense of vulnerability without his Buster Sword. This is good for building tension, considering monsters are crawling all over the place. They finally do make it to the playground, Green Park, good eye there, Gallagher, and there is an Easter egg that I freaking love. Aerith mentions that she should have brought her parasol. This weapon shows up repeatedly, both as a weapon for Aerith in FF7, and as a weapon that Zack uses in Costa del Sol in Crisis Core. Both are hilarious, and I approve wholeheartedly of this. There's also a cute little scene where Aerith explains that she basically just sells flowers for the joy of it, but it's usually just creeps trying to hit on her, so she upcharges them, even mentioning that a slimy Shinra executive paid her 500 gil for one flower. I like to think this was Palmer. He seems like the kind of guy who would pay for human contact. So, all joking aside, it's actually kind of a neat way to show that Aerith isn't as naive as she seems. I actually found this bit kind of empowering. It showcases her strength, while having her remain a pacifistic character. Okay, another quote from page 88 here. Time passed beyond consciousness, and Cloud suddenly found himself dragged from his thoughts by an unbearable grinding of cogs. He spun sharply, watching the gates as they shook and began to part. As he prepared to leap from the rotund Moogle, Aerith clasped his arm, her firm grip holding him down. Confused, he glanced round at her pleading eyes. Again, their pale green sparkle sent a waver of familiarity through him. Stronger now than it had been, when they first met on the plate, but he immediately cast the unwanted feelings aside. "Aerith, what are you doing?" he shouted over the deafening rumble, tugging at her to let go. I don't know. Okay, straight up, that scene breaks my heart. It's such an understandable reaction. She's been talking about Zack this time. They had a moment with the first class line, and there's this instinctive connection she feels to Cloud because she can sense Zack's presence in him. That connection and closeness happens almost immediately with her. Even if we ignore the more fantastical elements of their romance, Zack's presence inside Cloud, that connection and closeness that happens, there's just such a raw humanity to the scene. It's so well done. Like you can understand the connection she feels just from that moment, and it's so sweet and it's so vulnerable, and I just love it. Really, really well done. Okay, so they see Tifa getting dragged away on the caravan, and Aerith reads Cloud the Pokedex entry for Wall Market. Quick scene. Now, back to what Gallagher excels at, visual imagery. Okay. Seriously, I know I always mention his, descriptive scenes, but listen, this is from page 90. The lone entrance to Wall Market buzzed as the duo grew closer, the letters of the word South lighting up in a sequence on the electronic sign above the path. Cautiously they slowed beneath the flicker of luminous green, observing the main street as it made its way towards the grand mansion at the heart of the town. The inhabitants of the road wandered aimlessly hither and thither. Some struggled to find their balance under the influence of severe alcohol abuse, while others strolled arrogantly through the crowds escorted by underdressed women. Of all the locations Cloud had been since finding himself back in Midgar, Wall Market was by far the most exuberant. Situated where the central complex and the Sector 5 wall merged, the stone border of the town formed a barricade against unwelcome intruders. It had taken little less than 20 minutes to reach the edge of Wall Market, following the twisting highway to the origins of the sphere of radiance and blare of club music. Although running as fast as Aerith's legs would allow, they had fallen behind the mysterious chocobo and carriage, surrendering their valuable time of their rescue operation to what had become a search mission. Two paragraphs, and the scene is completely set. That was a joy to read. Again, that was a joy to read. So there's some great Easter eggs here, by the way. Shoutouts to Mookie, Joel's, Potions, Big Bro's Gym. I'm just touched you remember Mookie, man. But no, this entire section, Gallagher immediately jumps up the danger factor. Guys are literally trying to drag Aerith away. I mean, this This is an earthy and dark turn for Gallagher. I almost thought I was reading Williams' work for a second, but this is totally the place to do it. It's really kind of fascinating how we all remember Wall Market as being a really fun section to play, and kind of gloss over the fact that it is objectively the worst place in the game from a social standpoint, especially if you're a woman. It's all capped, by the way, with this great conversation with this total sleaze bag outside Honeybee Inn. I fucking love it. Okay, first off, he describes Tifa as bouncy and fresh-faced. It's just deliciously scummy. I feel like I have to take a shower just from reading that. And then the reference to Tifa's servicing, and the commenting of that little foreshadowing bit about how Corneo likes to travel to Wutai to dabble in some foreign action. Whew, good lordy, Gallagher. He takes the misogyny here to an art form, which sounds really bad out of context, but no, he really makes you feel the sleaze of this place, and it's really satisfying, because everything up to this point, there's been certainly some dark moments in Smidger, but, like, like, all of those parts where he's been being a bit lighter than Williams' work, he used all that credit here to make this place really stand out, and it actually works to great effect because of that huge contrast between standard dystopia and hide your kids, hide your wife dystopia. Okay, moving on. We're basically done. Gallagher ends this chapter, and he ends it perfectly. Okay, so we all know what happens here. We all know what happens in Wall Market. First off, just a side note, Aerith here is a bit faux lustful to kind of trick a guy. It's actually nice. She kind of comes out of her shell a little bit. And it's used to good effect, but he doesn't have her end the chapter by saying, hey, let's dress you up like a woman. Haha, that's so unexpected. He teases the reader, dropping a suggestion without ever bringing up the idea, and simply ending on the line, she'll definitely be something special. And again, we know what happens. We know what's going to happen here, but it's still such an effective hook for the next chapter. This is why I said that if you've never played FF7, I'd want you to start with Gallagher's work, because that would be an amazing cliffhanger. Kind of like Elena and Yuffie when Dawn goes to Wutai. But check. Okay, moving on to the mercenary. So, first off, I gotta say the section with Williams' work here is gonna be way shorter than usual. He catches up to Gallagher in 2 chapters and a page, which gives us a total of, 16 pages. Which, to be fair, I mean, it's the exact same number as Gallagher's work, but they format their books very differently. It's a lot shorter than what you're used to, is what I'm trying to say here. So, let's get about it. We start off with a cute little moment about how the house has been upkept over several generations, and how Elmira wants an heir, which is why she doesn't like Cloud. It's a little facetious comment, I thought it was cute. I also like the commendation medal he dreams up there, the twin stars for the family of those who die in battle. It's a nice little reminder of the previous chapter, a little neat touch. Now, Williams does something here with Cloud and Aerith and how they meet up. And yes, they meet up outside the house. They meet up at the sick guy's house, the old pipe he was living in. It's empty. Now, gee, why would it be empty? Where could he have gone? You see that? Both authors are amazing at this, taking what at first glance is not but a couple sentences that are just brief throwaway exposition, but in fact are perfectly foreshadowing future events. This is a little splinter that's going to stick with the reader right up until they learn about the reunion. That was perfect, don't change a word. So let's use up my first quote here to have this argument between Aerith and Cloud, because Aerith is a straight-up savage in this one. This is page 111 and 112. How did you know I would leave? I know my mom well enough, she explained. I wasn't sure if you were going to take her advice, but you're more of a stand-up guy than I expected. Do you think less or more of me for it? Aerith threw him a sidelong glance. You care what I think of you? Brief timeout from the quote here. Xander, I know this isn't FF8, but I'm a little disappointed you didn't have Cloud say, whatever, as a nod to my game of choice. Resume quote. You should go back, Cloud insisted. It's too dangerous. For whom? Eris asked. Me? Because I'm a girl? That's not what I meant. But you're perfectly safe on your own. I'm a soldier. Eris shook her head. Unarmed and without materia, you would have died twice on the way to my house if I hadn't been there. So, who needs a bodyguard now? I saw that meme from Jim Sterling. Seemed appropriate here. But no, straight up, that's why I said it last chapter and why I'm commenting on it again. Gallagher's Aerith gets an edge on her, slowly starts to peel away at the onion of her character. But Williams comes right out the gate with her as a straight-up bamf. We get some world building here, mentioning how beneath the ruined highway was the old high road, Rolfsack High Road he calls it, and a reference to the Gigases. And I love Aerith's comment here about how it's great that there is absolutely no cover now, because now they don't have to worry about hiding. Like, come on, that's so awesome! I would follow this woman into hell. She is the kind of woman who would love to be surrounded because that would mean she could fire in any direction. You're gonna hear me banging on about Williams Eris for the rest of the series, because his interpretation of her is seriously my absolute favorite thing in this book. And speaking of Eris, we get a brief moment from her perspective and a slight reminiscence. She handles her sudden feelings for Cloud completely differently from Gallagher's. Rather than being touched and having that beautiful, emotional moment we got with Gallagher, she's kind of actually defiant of her desires. She's basically confirms that she's almost developing a crush on him out of spite. It's just kind of a weird touch, but I get it. The Chocobo cart shows up. Cloud comments on how the bird looks worn out, to Eris replying, well, since it's too far away to hear you, I'm offended on its behalf. It's a cute line, and I think we're all thinking the same kind of jokes here, so let's move on. Now, Eris bolts after the caravan, and that leads us into Chapter 16. Let me read you the opening of Chapter 16. This is from page 118. The path split half a dozen times, and every time Cloud followed the two-toed bird's footprints. He lost sight of Eris almost immediately. Her head start and knowledge of the area helped her disappear into the labyrinth before Cloud had even descended from the cat's side. He couldn't track her into the packed dirt, even with her heavy boots. The trash was piled high, so he didn't see where he was headed until he turned a corner and was suddenly there. At the base of the main support pillar, the cross-section of all Midgar. The sector walls closed Sector 6 in, thinner and thinner, until the two walls met. Wedged into the corner was a tall, sprawling town. Even at this early hour, neon lights made the market glow, and people stumbled, laughing in and out of bars, inns, and cafes. As the market went on, it grew taller until the levels of shops and promenades matched the height of the sector walls. Some stores on stilts rose higher still, peeking over into neighboring sectors and nearing the underbelly of the plate. He kind of expands the image. Again, he's definitely giving Midgar his own unique touch, expanding what we see in the game, maybe not being as true to the original design, but such imagination on display. I just really like that. Okay, I also lost my shit laughing at this line about how Eris remembered this quaint little store that used to sell remote-controlled robots, and is now a brothel. Didn't realize Walmart was in Houston, huh? That's a topical joke that will go out of date in about now. Another musical references here, by the way. There's a guy humming a tune, Times is Bad, which was dubbed The Oppressed by her mother. These musical nods are my favorite because I'm a total nerd for the soundtrack, just FYI. And there's also a little sidelong reference to Mookie here. Again, nicely done. And there's some world-building moments here. Cloud has to speak the accent of the people and presses them for info by tossing coins. this sets up a lot of OC stuff here. So first off, there's a whole side story about how the Don was using old Shinra war machines from the Wutai War, which were decommissioned. Eventually that got too bothersome, so he had them fight each other to destroy each other. The weapon shop owner, Kiplin, has been plundering the old parts, trying to find stuff that works, which kind of is hinted at. We see, like, where you buy weapons, we see him kind of having weird mechanical stuff in the back. I like that. It kind of adds mystique to it, which I approve of. But that's only part of it. The entire section here, right up till we get to the Honeybee Inn, reads like a mystery. It's like, because he's going from person to person, getting little hints, following this trail. I'm not going to read an out-of-context quote. You know my policy on that by now, but just really, it's such a great take on the scene we're all used to. They finally do make it to the Honeybee Inn. There's a scene here with Johnny. It ties it along here in just a little bit, so I just wanted to point that out, because it's funny to me. He's doing so much with this character. Now, there's one line. I mean, the Johnny thing is cute, but the one thing I do remember especially is really esoteric joke here. Okay, he mentions the bouncer. The bouncer has a metal leg. He goes, well, at least it's not a gun leg. Now, that's a cute nod to Barrett, but I kind of think that was a reference to Grindhouse. I mean, I didn't even watch the movie, but I saw the trailers. Was that a sidelong thing there? Because if so, nice. So they find out about the Dawn, and we're on to chapter 17. And, like, that's it. We're, like, on the first page of chapter 17. Within a few sentences, Eris says, let's dress you up like a girl. And, like, that's that. It was that fast from there on. So, see, this section felt, like, way shorter. It was paced perfectly for the book itself, but, again, it was shorter than I'm used to. So, and it was certainly packed with a lot of nice world building, too. Again, that's the difference. I think the pace is faster because of the shorter chapters, and the fact that there's a lot more unique content, a lot more OC stuff with Williams' work. And that's it for this section. There's a massive divide in how these authors tackle these sections here. Again, their own writing style is well established by now, and we know that Williams does original stuff, whereas Gallagher takes more from the compilation. But really, it feels like these two sections were the most different so far. They felt like completely different stories. So, I mean, that was nice. It made it interesting to read. Let's be real here. The important thing is that both authors brought up Mookie. That's the key point to walk away with. Okay, I'm going to stop babbling now. I probably sound like an idiot, more so than usual. So, thank you to my Patreon Knights, Matthew Caveat Zealot and MJ Gallagher. I'm going to wrap this up here today, and we'll be back with part 6, where we're going to dive into the Don's mansion and, of course, the famous and infamous cross-dressing scene. Y'all take it easy. His body sank into the thick blue cushions, reminding him of the comfort it had given him as... Quotes. Why? Because you can pass off your own nonsense as intentional, but when you actually have to say words, that's where you fail. Even if we set aside the more fantastical elements of their relationship, you know, the Zack juice swimming in Cloud's veins. That sounded... I'm sorry. This is so unprofessional. That sounded way less dirty in text than it did when I actually just said it. Oh my god. The pacing on this video is shot. I gotta trim that. I gotta put that in the outtakes. Oh my god. What the fuck did you write, dude? There's a cute little comment in Cloud's internal monologue about how the houses... oh my god, Micah. Scratch what you said earlier. That was your own line. You couldn't read it.